Alright, let's go ahead and graph y equals 1/2 sine x. Class, what's the first thing we need to do? Okay, so to identify your variables, you can write the formula right above it. Yesterday, all we learned about was just the A, B, so class, what's my A value? So A is equal to 1/2. Trace the color. And class, what does my A stand for? The amplitude. Amplitude is the what? What was the formula? So if I put the 1/2 in here, the absolute value of 1/2 is 1/2. Distance to 0, right? So my amplitude is going to be 1/2. Class, what's my B value? There is no number there, so it's a 1. So my B value is equal to 1. And that helps us with step number 1. If my B is 1, I just put it there. 2 pi over 1, your period is going to be what? 2 pi. Okay? Alright, let's go ahead and make our graph now, because I'm going to make these 4 intervals. Now, I've been recommending that you've been drawing your graphs about the size of your palm. You don't want it too small. And you want space below it, because I'm going to actually make my table of values right below it. Now, to get 5 spaces, you actually need, to get 4 intervals, you actually need 5 x values. To get 4 intervals, you're going to have to do 5 x values. Here's my 5 x values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm starting here at the origin. And I equally spaced them out, so my graph's not too squished. And it says to lay off by a amount of 2 pi. Okay, so this is 0. And that means my graph of sine is going to finish by 2 pi. Yesterday we were using the quadrantal angles, and we might get lucky in this problem. Okay? And all you have to do is just midpoint. Everyone say midpoint? Midpoint. You can essentially use the midpoint formula. What is that? You just add these two and divide it by 2. 0 plus 2 pi. And divide that by 2. 1 pi. Bless you. And you can do the same thing here. 1 pi plus 2 pi is, and 3 pi divided by 2, 1/2, or we've been using the word 3 pi over 2. Right? You have, I have $0, you have $2. What's our average if we split it? 0 plus 2 is 1. 0 plus 2 is 2, and then divided by 2 is 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. We'll be using 3/2. Class, what's the midpoint going to be for this one? Pi over 2. Right? That's just $0 and $1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. 1/2, or 1 pi over 2. Alright, so we have our A, B, C, and D's. My amplitude, we didn't really write, is going to help me figure out how high the graph goes. So if this is 1, then this would be 1/2. So your intervals should be the same, right? If I'm using 3 boxes for 50 cents, then this is another 50 cents, 3 boxes. Same thing going down, negative 1/2. and then 1. We have a period up to 2 pi. I have the 4 intervals. What does that mean? This is the intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 spaces between the 5 points. And now we're going to evaluate the 5 points. So basically what I'm going to do, see if I can show you by highlighting this. The values on the x-axis here are going to be the 5 x values that I'm going to be using down here. Let's write that. These are my x values. So I have 0. I'm writing it kind of the same distance here. Pi over 2. 1 pi. 3 pi over 2. And 2 pi. And as you're evaluating these, I want you to work from right to left. Which direction, class? And really what this is, if I can summarize this, this is just really PEMDAS. The order of operations. So I already have x. I'm going right to left. I have a 1. And really what you're doing is you're putting this value in here, solve it, and you get an answer. That's your y value. This is your input, and you get an output. It's just kind of weird how I get my outputs. So now I'm going to do sine at x. So the next point I'm going to do here is I'm going to write sine of x. And this is essentially what we did yesterday, or our unit circle, if you have yours. Feel free to use your trick paper plate, or if you've memorized it, you're looking at the quadrantals, or you can always draw it out. Class, what's sine at 0? Right? Remember, think about that order pair, 1, 0, and then sine is the second order pair. Class, what's sine at pi over 2? Sine at pi. Sine at 3 pi over 2. And sine at 2 pi. It's 0 again, right? Because 0 and 2 pi are coterminal and end in the same position. Okay, so let's review what we've done so far. We've identified the A, B, C's, and D's. We figured out our 2 pi. Thank you.
No worries.
We're figuring out, we found our 4 intervals and our 5 x values, and to evaluate my x values, I'm going from right to left. I'm basically putting in each of these values. Now, the last thing I need to do is this 1/2. Class, what math operation is the 1/2 to sine? How did you know it's multiplication? Because there's no what? There's no addition or subtraction. So we're going to multiply 1/2 to what we have on the previous line. Let me say that again. I'm just multiplying 1/2 to what I just found on the previous line. So I'm just going to multiply all these numbers by 1/2. Okay? Class, 1/2 times 0. 1/2 times 1. 1/2 times 0. 1/2 times -1. That was supposed to be 0. 1/2 times -1. And 1/2 times 0. 0. Alright, watch this. So that's our answer. I'm going to graph this second line. I want to show you what happens. This is my order pair. 0, 0. Pi over 2, 1. pi, 0. This was yesterday's lesson, right? And 3 pi over 2, negative 1. And then 2 pi, 0. But class, was I asked to just graph sine of x? No. We have 1/2 sine of x. Let's pick a different color. Let's pick purple. Zero, 0. Pi over 2, 1/2. Pi, 0. 3 pi over 2, negative 1/2. 2 pi, 0. Uh-oh. What happened to our graph, class? Yeah. Remember those kind of days you like maybe you went to the what was the last school dance? The neon color one? You went to stag dance and like the next day you know how you're like, oh, I'm so tired, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? You woke up, you slept in, right? Your energy level was a lot lower. Why? You had 1/2. You had the amplitude of was only 1/2. Okay? So let me summarize what we did so far. We found the A, B, C, and D. Found the 2 period by using the B value. 4 intervals. Just take out your 2 pi, and then you just keep doing the midpoints. Midpoint. Midpoint. You evaluate it using this table. My table is a little bit interesting because I'm kind of doing mass production of x values. Okay? Let me show you guys another way of doing the problem. And how I get the order pair 3 pi over 2 and negative 1/2. You can take 3 pi over 2. Sine at 3 pi over 2 is negative 1. And then negative 1 times 1/2 is just negative 1/2. It's just a way of organizing all of my values. And then if I say I needed more, it's if I said graph it over 2 pi, you would just basically copy these points. And we'll practice that in